Thank you, Minister. Now, the New South Wales framework for the Specialist Trans and Gender Diverse Health Service for people under 25 years was published in September 2023. It references the establishment of a clinical advisory group which would be tasked with developing clinical guidelines. Now, a year later, in September 2024, in response to some questions of budget estimates, New South Wales Health did refer to the clinical advisory group, noting that New South Wales Health would consider its advice. However, I understand there is no publicly available information on either the chair, the membership, the scope, or the work of the clinical advisory group. So can you tell us, has the clinical advisory group been formally established, and if so, when?
I think it has. Does anyone want to... I'll have to take that one on notice, sorry, Mr. Ruddick.
Okay,
if I can get it beforehand, I'll give you a commitment to get it back to you today.
Okay, good.
That way you've got the information.
I do have a few more questions later, so hopefully we can take them all on notice.
That's all right.
So we'd also be keen to know who the appointed members are and what their qualifications are. We want to know what guarantees there are that there will be a diversity of views on this panel, which is best practice for advisory groups of this nature. We'd like to know if advocacy groups were involved in the selection, including whether ACON was involved. And we'd like to know why has New South Wales Health not publicly disclosed the membership and the terms of reference about the clinical advisory group.
I am happy to take all of those on notice, but I will just say this, Mr. Ruddick, on this topic. These are pretty vulnerable children, and I just want to be really careful in the way in which we speak about these individuals and their families. They are often going through very challenging times, and I'm just, perhaps as a parent, cognizant of the comments that I make as a leader, that I've got to be aware of that people may be viewing this, and I don't want them to view it in a way where I don't think that we're taking their healthcare seriously. We do everything in this space on an evidence-based framework. We don't operate outside an evidence base. We had Sachs Institute have a look at what we were doing and making sure that we were doing that in line. I do note that the federal government has recently asked, I think it's the NHMRC, to have a look at this type of care across the country. We support that, but we are also confident in the work we are doing in this space, and I by no means say that that doesn't mean we can't be questioned. I accept that. I'm just saying I need to be careful in the way in which I answer as well.
Okay, no, I fully understand. Look, I mean, we're not asking for anyone's names to be.
No.
We're just, I mean, it is an authority that's been created by law. So I think the public does have.
No problems at all. No problems at all.
Transparency on that front.
I think it's a very fair question.
Thank you. And then the same report also did refer to the creation of a consumer advisory panel. So we'd also be keen to know, is that up and running? If so, when, and who the members are of that. Okay, so on a different question. In March 2022, New South Wales Health released the New South Wales LGBTIQ+ Health Strategy 2022 to 2027, accompanied by a summary of evidence. I am told that the most recent evidence cited in the documents dates back to 2019. Since then, multiple systematic reviews in peer countries, including the UK, Sweden, Finland, and Norway, have led significant policy changes regarding gender medicine, particularly in relation to the use of puberty blockers for minors. How does New South Wales Health ensure that its policies remained aligned with current international evidence and best practice, given that the evidence base for this strategy was already outdated at the time of publication?
So I announced in roughly July 2023, I can't get the exact date, but I just remember it was around the middle of the year, that we asked the Sachs Institute would review the evidence for the care of trans and gender diverse people. They're independent, as you know. It's a not-for-profit research body. The review provides a synthesis of what you highlighted, which was the latest evidence from roughly the period 2019 to 2023. And you are right, there was a significant volume of research in that time. The volume of research, though, didn't necessarily mean the quality of research. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but researchers obviously, given what they can influence and the way in which they set up their control mechanisms, depending on the quality. So the key findings of that review that I commissioned was that on the volume of the evidence, that volume has increased significantly, but on the quality of evidence, there are limited studies using gold standard research methods. And for those of us who have researched, done an honours or a master's or a PhD, things like randomised controls and things like that we know, and that was the case because of ethical concerns about withholding care and the small number of participants. But the review, the research showed that what we were doing was evidence-based, was in line. That does not mean in any way, shape or form that we are not prepared to continue to have a look at emerging research trends in this area. We do. I expect health to continue to do that. I would expect it about any form of healthcare, and I expect it about this, particularly with this, because you're dealing with vulnerable people, you're dealing with very, very challenging family situations, and you're also dealing with a case of a lot is happening in terms of the overall volume of research, but because of those challenges, the quality of research is problematic. And I don't mean quality in terms of poor, just in terms of the instruments that researchers use to provide robust conclusions.